Hi, this is What Wise Women Want here on CPA Channel 13. And we here every week talking about various different kinds of subjects that relate to women. We have all panels of women every single week. This week we're going to be talking about women-owned businesses. And the women who are here today not only own one business, but several of them own several businesses. And we're going to find out what it takes to have a women-owned business. And just personally, they're going to give us a little bit of information in the event that you might want to start your own business. So here we are, the panel. From my right is Angela Burrus-Terrell. To her right is Janine Jensen. To her right is Kimber Hockey. And to her right is Jillian Regan. Now, ladies, rather than me telling everybody about your businesses, I think it's much more appropriate for you to give us a little bit of information about what it is that you do. And then we're going to talk about how you decided to go into business and things like that. So will you do me a favor, Angela, and start and tell us a little bit about your businesses?
Sure. I'm Angela Burrus-Terrell. I'm a native of Charlottesville. I own Monticello Nannies. I own Angel Nest Bed and Breakfast. I own Angela Homestyle Cuisine, and those are my three businesses.
So you have a nanny business,
yes,
a bed and breakfast, and the third one is
a cooking service.
A cooking service.
Yes, prepared meals.
Wow. And are you in the business all by yourself, or do you have people? You're in the businesses by yourself.
By myself.
Whoa. Okay, Janine.
Fantastic. So I, in May, purchased the company that I've worked for 30 years. And that company is in the publishing world. But I'm actually here to talk about a local business that I own, Madison Arts Exchange, or Mad Arts. And that is a collaborative of about 200 different local artisans. And about 5 years ago, I developed a sidearm of that business, which was Ma's Outdoor and More, selling sheds and utility buildings, barns and carports and so forth.
Excellent.
Nice.
All right. Kimber.
Yeah, Kimber Hockey, and I have one business through which I do various services. It's Talk of the Town Languages, languages and culture. And I primarily teach English, Spanish, French, and I joke about survival Swahili. I'm going to do the basics of Swahili. And I also provide translating services, editing services, and with my husband, who's a French winemaker, we do wine classes as well.
Wow.
Nice.
All right.
Yes.
Jillian.
Great, so I have 4 different businesses. The first is photography and videography. So I'm a photographer and videographer who focuses mainly on commercial and event photography and videography. Second one is consulting at Rillian, which the name stands for Research and Insights Leading to Learning, Innovation, and Action.
Okay, well,
so kind of a mouthful. But basically,
what do you consult?
Sure, so basically it's the kind of varies project by project. My background is in public health and also statistics, as well as I've also worked in the creative continue to work in the creative field. So I can kind of combine those depending on what the project calls for. I'm either helping with the research side, helping develop insights, or I'm helping with the action and innovation steps, actually helping people take their plans and put them into action, as well as evaluate them.
So that's business 2. You have a third one.
Business 3 is bicycle rentals and skincare at Jill and Ann.
Wait a minute. Bicycle rentals and skincare?
Yes, under one business.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So bicycle rentals, it's a way for people to rent their own bikes. Similar to concept to Airbnb, but with bicycles.
Okay.
Skincare, I sell Roden and Fields brand skincare products on the side, and then secondhand retail to help the environment is my last business, which is Misty River Garden.
Whoa, okay. So
I'm exhausted.
How do we do it all? It's not possible.
So, as always, I constantly neglect to tell everybody who I am. I'm Dr. Daria Brzezinski, and I, too, own several different businesses. I work with autistic children and adults, for the most part adults. I have a cybersecurity business. I own the first holistic health center in the United States and the first environmentally friendly wholesale retail store. So that's why I wanted these ladies, because everything is so diversified with all of you, and you have. So I know what one question everybody is going to ask is, how do you find time to do all these things? Number one, all right. How do you find time to do 3 different businesses?
Well, you have to be.
What's the secret?
You have to really be well organized.
Yep.
And so my day of being organized is normally on a Sunday, and that's when I have my me time. So that's when I get everything organized for the week: my meals, my appointments with my clients for the nanny service, and if I'm having any guests checking in, during the week or on the weekend with my Airbnb.
Okay. Janine, how do you do it?
I would say that I am probably not as well organized as you are, but I am super high energy, and I wake up at the crack of dawn and I go to sleep at the crack of dawn. I rarely sleep. So I'm using a full day. I probably get more accomplished by 7 a.m. than most people do throughout their whole day, and I rarely go to sleep before midnight or 1 o'clock.
So you don't require a whole lot of sleep.
I don't need a whole lot of sleep. I probably should, and about once every couple of years I take a nap.
That's me.
Yeah.
A 20-minute power nap.
Right.
Every couple of years.
Okay, Jillian, how do you balance 4 different businesses?
Yeah, so the balance is I have 2 that are my main focus, and then the other ones are I kind of find hours to work on them on the side. So my main focus is photography, videography, and consulting. And it just kind of, those are all very like project or like shoot based. So the amount of work varies depending on what I'm doing that day or that week. And just like staying organized, like you said, that
right.
helps important. I also like to use Sunday as my organizing day, but then sometimes I'll have a shoot on Sunday, so then I have to reschedule. And also, I guess, being flexible and rescheduling is another way, just like finding ways to fit in what you need to get done.
So organization and flexibility are 2 things, and I know that is true for myself as well. I taught my clients, I take old business cards and I write on the back of them all the things that I want to get done and stick it in my wallet every day so that I have focus, in terms of what I want to do during the day. So
I'm tied to my Google Calendar. I've got everything on my Google Calendar.
Okay.
And I have it color coded too.
Do you keep it on your phone?
I have it on my computer more. And then, so I color code it as well, so I can see just by looking at it what I need to do. If it's a French or if it's a Spanish or in English, whatever the language is, I have different color codes.
Ah, very good. Okay.
So
everybody has their own kind of organizational, skill set.
But you have to be organized.
You have
Yes.
to be organized to own your own business. Absolutely, number 1.
And you have to have great people that work for you.
Yes. Well, sometimes, when you first start your own business, you're the only one working because you're the only one you can afford to work. So, you really have to be, like, you don't have any employees, do you, Jillian?
Not
No.
currently. I mean,
And you-
usually I work with like independent contractors,
Right.
or depending on like the project for consulting. I would love to have employees, but not quite there yet where I could afford to have them.
And I've tried training people to do what I do, with the autistic community, and I just haven't been able to find anybody who wants to do that kind of work. And you're a solopreneur too. And so what happens is, like, one of the things I complain to the chamber all the time is you don't have membership fees for solopreneurs. Those of us who are just solo and doing our business, people don't think about that when they're thinking about business. So how is it that you got into the area you got into? Kimber, how did you get into your business?
Well, I had traveled the world, and I've traveled the world by teaching, and I've taught a lot of English in various scenarios, and when I was abroad, and so I fell into teaching first because I had to put myself through school, and that's how I helped put myself through school and get my degrees. But so when I came back to the States, I did the same, and I started working in the public schools and private schools. And then after years of doing that, I just decided I really needed more flexibility and not to be tied to syllabi or grades and tests and all of that, and more freedom. And so I decided to go out on my own and offer classes.
So why did you go on your own, Janine?
Mad Arts actually started quite as an accident, sort of a fun story. My nephew had just graduated from high school, and he said, "Aunt Janine, I want to be an artist." And I said, "Well, that's great, but you have to sell art and make a living to be an artist. You can't just, paint pictures and hope to get checks and so forth." So I basically sort of started him out by selling a handful of his paintings, and it was very well received. And in addition to his paintings, a couple other artists, and that led from 10 or 12 people to 50 to 75 to 100 to 200 and so on. And that was 10 years ago. But I initially did not set out with a business plan. I always call it the accidental business. I did keep my day job because I'm not a risk taker. People always laugh at that. But I loved it. It's very community oriented and focused. So it just started out in a different way than most people would start a business. They'd probably start with a concrete business plan or an idea. So I sort of went round the bend on that.
Okay. Angela, how did you start your businesses?
Well,
Which one started first?
Monticello Nannies started first. And what happened was
I thought that was such a great idea.
I love that name.
Monticello Nannies.
It's great.
So my sister and I shared a nanny, and so we ended up with a bad nanny. And so I had to do research because we didn't do a criminal background check. We didn't do a DMV check. We just went by word of mouth.
Right.
So that's how Monticello Nannies started. Yes.
Great.
How did the bed?
Well, Angel Nest started, I'd gone, it was years ago, I was a young child, and I went with my cousin to New York. And so we stayed at a bed and breakfast. So I really enjoyed it, but they only rented out one room at a time. With my bed and breakfast, I booked the whole house. So when I built my house, I knew that I wanted this bed and breakfast, and I knew that my son would not be there forever. And so that's how I started Angel Nest Bed and Breakfast.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right. Jillian, what possessed you to do all these diversified businesses?
Yeah.
Was there a reason?
I mean, they all
behind them
have kind of like different reasons, and I started them at different times. Misty River Garden, my secondhand retail business, was actually my first business, even though I had been doing photography longer as a hobby.
Okay, so secondhand retail is secondhand clothes? Or?
Secondhand retail. So I started out with clothes and shoes. I used to have a collection of like the model horses from when I was younger that my parents kept that I decided to sell to kind of, first it was pay off student loans and then just have some like extra on the side. And then it was I just really got really interested in business overall from that. I had always been doing photography as a hobby, always really loved it, wasn't really sure if I wanted to actually have my income depend on it. So I was kind of like back and forth with that for a while, but that one became official in 2016, although I first started like submitting to publications and got published and had a gallery show in 2010 or 2011.
Wow.
Is the
That's
secondhand
amazing.
retail online?
Yes, online. I have stores on eBay, Poshmark, Etsy, and Depop.
And how about the bike business?
That one is my newest one. That came out of my interest in improving health, community health, as well as interest in finding ways for people to make a little bit extra money, so extra income. So that was based on a lot of research I did from my consulting, which was a public health background. So I did research for that and just decided to start it. And so that was, and I bike myself, so I like to bike. I'm more of a bike commuter. I don't really do like the bike competitions or I'm not super talented bicyclist. I just like to prefer to bike as my way of getting around town.
I think that's such a clever business because you're, no pun intended, you're not reinventing the wheel. You're taking an existing business model and then applying it to a different vehicle. And it's just really clever.
Yeah, I think
It'd be interesting to watch that.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a gallery in Madison or
Yeah.
a retail shop?
I would call it more of a retail store. It does have a gallery component, but there's everything from textiles to music to books, sculpture, a lot of prints, photography. We sell a lot of jewelry, a wide variety, and all of the artisans are primarily from Central Virginia.
Okay.
We have a very large children's section filled with new books, as well.
So my businesses started for different reasons. I started a holistic health center because I became ill, so I went all over the country, well, actually the world, looking for alternative cures. And then I started the recycling, because the environmentally friendly store, because we were driving in Buckingham and one of my children was crying and said, Bambi's not, they were clear cutting, Bambi's not going to have a home, you have to do something about it. So, you know, and my cybersecurity company evolved because my autistic clients were getting in trouble online, and so I started researching and investigating it, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm into cybersecurity, which that was like, you know, bizarre in terms of, you know, a direction to go. So each one of us has, you know, a reason for why. Have any of you worked for an employer before you opened up your own business? And what was that experience like? And did that kind of drive you to your own business? Anybody?
Yes,
Sure.
definitely.
Absolutely.
And just wanting the freedom from that dependence on somebody else. You know, you also, as you talk about risk, you do take some risk, and you don't know sometimes where your income's going to come from all the time, because clients change. As you said, you have different jobs. So, you know, it's a balance, and you can't have everything, I suppose. But it's nice to be on one's own and be in control of one's own destiny, too.
And is that why everybody got into their own businesses? Kind of have your own control?
Partly. I mean, I've had great employers. I've had good employers and okay ones. But it just kind of like opened my eyes, because it seems like I always had a side hustle, because before second in retail, I never really operated a business, but I used to teach horseback riding lessons on the side. So I always had something going on the side, and it was kind of like, which one would you rather do? Would you rather be in like a more structured environment? And I kind of prefer like more of a challenge, which owning a business and running a business offers.
Well, I was a terrible employee. Janine?
My very first business card that I made when I started being my own boss, my title was Creative Solutionist, that one of my friends actually gave to me. And I think that probably all of us, all five of us sitting here, we all are fixers, problem solvers, and we're not happy or satisfied. If we see a void or a problem, our brains are, you know, like already clicking, like, oh,
What
I can
system
fix
can
that.
I put in place
I can
for this?
change
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I've got this idea, and, you know, I mean, it's just part of how I think we might operate and be made.
So one of the things women ask me all the time is, how do you define your business? And, you know, for people who are watching, SWAM, LLC, so what kind of businesses did you entitle and tell people what that means, what those different kinds of businesses mean?
Legally?
Yeah.
Sure.
So what's SWAM, for example? Do you know?
SWAM is a program out of the state of Virginia.
Yes.
And I forget what the acronym. It's women
and minorities.
Small
and
women
minorities.
and minority-owned
Yes.
What's the S stand for?
Small
women
Small
and
business.
And they
minority-owned
have
businesses. Yeah.
definitions on like what they
Yeah.
consider to be small, which I think is a lot bigger than
So
what I
I think it's
consider to be
like
small.
200 or, you know, or 500 people. Like it's, you know, it's not just really small. It's,
And so what happens is you get to have special, I don't know, be in a special category when you have SWAM, especially if you're
there
doing
are
government.
different categories, like LLC, you know, provide you certain protections. There's sole proprietorship.
Right.
And
So what is it that you all have?
I'm just a sole proprietorship.
Sole proprietor?
Just was easiest
Janine,
for me.
what do
So
you-
my businesses are all incorporated. I have a huge amount of insurance. I run businesses that are open to the public.
Right.
And I have an incredible, umbrella insurance policy to protect me in the business. And in my publishing career, that's obviously incorporated as well. And we have 11 employees in that business.
Okay.
And so, everything is by the book.
Right.
First speed dial person on my phone is my accountant. And even though you all think that you might have to have the lawyer right up there, the lawyer is the person you probably speak to the least amount of time.
true.
I agree.
Your accountant is your number one best friend that you talk to all the time.
Yep.
So, and then your insurance agent.
Yep. And you,
I have an LLC.
LLC?
Yes.
Okay.
And
I
I
have
went through those
one-
steps too, from sole proprietor to LLC to
You can find
incorporated. You
online
can go.
the different categories and what would fit best for you depending
Right.
upon your needs.
Right.
I have 1 LLC and 3 sole proprietorships.
Okay. So it's variety here in terms of, and how many of you actually wrote a business plan?
For some of them.
Okay.
So for
Yes.
my consulting business, I did because I had planned on doing that. Actually, in grad school, I was kind of considering going consulting route. I went the employment route for a little while before going consulting. So that one had a business plan, and bicycle rentals had a business plan. The other ones I just kind of started on the side and then kind of like made notes to myself, and then kind of came up with like a more specific like business plan and like marketing plan when I just like wanted to have something written out for myself.
Okay. Did you have a business plan?
Yes, for Monticello nannies.
Okay.
I had a business plan.
So you all basically had a business plan.
I did not have a formal business plan because I had worked for many years here and I knew people and I just kind of knew what I wanted to do. My name was out there already and knew I had a clientele, so I just kind of went for it.
A lot of times business plans are good to really focus, especially if somebody's first going into business. It's really good to focus on all the various, who, what, when, where, and, really focus on, because most businesses fail, from in the first 2 years, 2 to 5 years. And so it's really important to be focused on exactly what it is that you want to do. And I found that doing the budgeting was the hardest part, but did you all fund your own businesses, or did you get out? Did anybody here get a business loan? No. No.
I did.
You did?
Yes.
Where did you get your business loan from?
It was
A bank or?
Yes, a bank.
Okay.
Yes.
Janine, did you get?
Well, I got a business loan to purchase real estate to move my business into when it had outgrown the existing location.
Okay.
And instead of a mortgage, it was treated as a business loan. It was really a good move.
So I did creative financing for several of my businesses. For example, the environmentally friendly store, for example, Earthwise. What I did was I got together 25 business people, and I asked each one of them to give me $1,000, and in 6 months to come into the store and use that $1,000 to make purchases. So that's how I started that business. And then in another business that I had, I got 5 bankers together, and I said, if each one of you, I needed $25,000 to start up for that one. I said, if each one of you give me $5,000, then if I fail, you only be out $5,000. And within 6 months, I paid that back. And so, what I really wanted to get across is that women. It's statistically known that women tend to, if you do take out a loan or if you do get money, from a bank, women tend to pay it back more than oftentimes others do. So that's why you were telling me earlier about statistics regarding women-owned businesses. What were you telling me?
Yeah, there's a trend in recent years with more women opening small businesses than people of other genders, of men or non-binary. As well as the report kind of goes into detail of just like trends, as well as a trend in an increase overall in people starting businesses on the side, as well as more women starting businesses on the side. And it was just an interesting report. It's the 2019 report on women and minority, women and minority-owned businesses that is done by American Express.
Okay.
It's interesting too because I lived in Kenya for a year and had some experience there. I know that a lot of the microloans and such, they focus on women, and because women have been proven to be more successful at running the business, paying the loans back, and being successful business owners.
Well, and the other thing that seems to be in common with everybody here also is that you have niche businesses. You don't have the kind of business where, when I first started the environmentally friendly business, the Earthwise, I spent all of my time, it was a niche business, nobody had one in the United States, and what happened was I spent all of my time teaching people about recycling. in order to sell a product, I had to educate people and was in school districts talking to kids and things about recycling and things like that. And so, but your niche businesses are not, you know, you don't have to go out there and educate people.
No.
You know, people, I mean, obviously nannies and bed and breakfast, you know.
Well, you have to prove that what you're offering is worthwhile, I suppose, often. Or you have to find an interest, like the wine, for example. Find people who are interested in drinking something that's more than just your average box wine or something.
Well, I used to teach a class on starting your own business. And I would ask my students, what is your target market? And their answer always was, everybody. But everybody is not your target market.
No.
And so that's why I said you all
Sure.
have niche markets. You know, your business is not about selling to everybody necessarily. It's, you know, people who ride bikes, or, you know, people who are interested in books, or people who need everybody. I mean, it's this stage of my life, I certainly don't need a nanny. And so, you know, that I think that's one problem when women start businesses. They think they're going to be selling to everybody, and that's not the case at all. So, what were you going to say,
Going
Jen?
back to the money, though, I think for the viewers and listeners, I think it's really important that someone starting out a business have about 6 months of operating expenses.
At least, yeah.
At least. Because the first year can make or break you with unexpected expenses. What if, you know, the roof caves in, or someone trips and breaks their arm, and or your insurance goes through the roof, or you're sick, or there are just so many unknown expenses in operating a business that it's nice to think that you can fund it yourself or based on income, but having a slush fund and just socking a little bit away every month to replace the roof or pave the parking lot or whatever, it's really important.
And a very good idea. And a lot of times, I don't, you know, especially if you have a brick and mortar business, meaning a store or things like that, it's oftentimes seasonal. You know, like you might
Absolutely.
have from September to December, and then January and February, there's nothing.
Correct.
So you have to budget for, you know, when your business is, you know, you have to figure out what those ebbs and, do all of you have seasonal, do all of you have ebbs and flows in your business, different seasonal times?
During, I would say my slowest months with the bed and breakfast would be normally December and January.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Do you have seasonal?
It's, you know, I would say it's seasonal, but I mean, there are always ups and downs. You know, sometimes I have more classes and I have less than other times, or people are interested in wine at different times of the year, perhaps, and or people are when people travel and holidays. That's always difficult for a time. Yeah.
Okay. Jillian, do you?
Yeah, so bicycle rentals is very seasonal. Not a lot of people like to ride their bikes in the winter. I mean, I do.
Yep.
But not a whole lot of people want to rent bikes in the winter. Most people who do ride in the winter probably own their own bike. Photography and videography is also kind of seasonal. Retail is seasonal.
I would
like
think
the
that
holidays.
would also be event related too.
Event related,
Like
yeah. There's a lot more
weddings,
events.
like
in the summer.
weddings
I don't
and
do weddings, but there's just in general more events in the summer, and more
Right.
people wanting to do like outdoor photo
Outdoor
shoots.
stuff,
And
right.
I don't have a studio, so I do travel to locations. So
Yeah.
I can do indoor locations. We just have to find a location.
Okay, so I think we need to be honest here. What have been your greatest challenges in terms of running your business? What do you think? Anybody want to start?
For me, my greatest challenge has been the website aspect and technology aspect, because nowadays you really have to have an online presence. And how do you start a website? How do you design it? Finding someone who can do that or help you, and then how do you get your Google ranking? And so there's this whole other aspect that is very important nowadays. It's not just putting an ad in the newspaper and things like that. I think word of mouth is very important as well. However, everyone is online nowadays, and
Right.
so you need to figure that out.
Okay. Anybody else have what challenges?
For me, because I don't have a background in finance, so learning the finance aspect of business, as well as since I'm financing it myself, and I never really made a whole lot of money at any of my jobs. So definitely like understanding the financial aspect and like figuring out how to do what I wanted to do in order to be able to market my business. So a lot of like guerrilla marketing and social media, as well as like in-person networking is how I marketed it, because I still don't have a big ad budget to spend on like advertisements in magazines or even Facebook ad budget.
So you basically, most of your business is online.
Yeah, I don't have any physical locations.
Right. Okay. What challenges?
I would have to agree with the two of the other ladies as far as technology. So what I would do is I would hire someone to do my website, to keep that going. And then I ended up with advertising. I ended up getting a UVA student to help me, and so they didn't charge me. It was like, okay, so.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep. Janine, what did you find challenging?
Well, there are so many challenges. Probably retaining good people is understanding, what your staff need and want and how to retain them is really crucial. It's not always about money. It's about other things. I tend to hire people that are retired or near retirement age. They've already raised their children, and they have world experience. They're knowledgeable. They're reliable. They have a car that gets them to and from. So when you're opening and running and operating a retail business, you have to make sure someone actually shows up, opens up, is watching the cash drawer and all these things. So staff is probably your single most important aspect, and making sure that they feel valued and appreciated.
And that's exactly why I got out of brick and mortar. Because I had such a hard time finding people to work,
It is tough. It's a challenge.
Or they'll come to me, 6 weeks after they've been hired and want a raise and, another 8-week vacation and things like that. Or walking off with the pencils and, other kinds of things. It's really tough to do brick and mortar.
It is.
My mother has a very successful cafe down in Florida, and her biggest challenge is people.
Yep.
And she'll need someone, they'll come in and say, I'm so wonderful, I'm this and I'm going to do all this stuff for you, and then they don't even show up for the first day of work. Or, just craziness, or,
or after you've trained them,
Yes, exactly.
They decide that's not what they want to do.
It's so hard.
And the other thing is getting them to show up on time, or call when they're not showing up. And
I'll be honest, the majority of my business is me, because I know I can count on me.
Exactly.
And then what I do.
And I wondered if that's one of the reasons why we're all doing our own business.
Well, for other languages that I don't teach, I will refer them out to another tutor. However, I do not want. What I do is I charge a fee for that, and I get my flat fee. That's it, and then it's up to them to work with that student.
Right.
Because I do not want my reputation hinging on that other person and what they do and don't do.
Exactly.
I leave it totally up to them. And, people said to me, oh, you're losing money. I'm like, no, I'm not having the hassle of having to, take care of somebody else.
Sure.
Well, when I first started my businesses, there was no marketing budget.
Right.
Now you have to have a cybersecurity budget on top of it all, but there was no marketing budget. And so what I did, thankfully I was a writer. So would write articles in Entrepreneur Magazine and all the various kinds of business magazines. I'd talk about my own business in the magazines, or I'd call up other magazines. I was in Albemarle Magazine and a bunch of others, and I'd get free publicity all the time. I figured out a way to do free publicity, and then it was like a chain of events. Like Earthwise was on NBC, ABC, CBS, PBS, and so. Once you get your name out, you figure out a way to get yourself out there. Sometimes it's a chain of events. But now that we're doing online, like the business that I have working with people, I can't post their pictures up on my Facebook page or my Instagram page without their permission, and nobody wants everybody to know, I'm working with them. And so I get up if everybody who's on my Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn know that I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and what I do is I post positive posts for the day, brain teasers. I get myself out there in a different way, and then like I'll post these TV shows or something like that. But I can't go out there and say, I can list it that this is my website, but I can't go out there and say this is the kind of work I'm doing with kids because I can't, ethically talk about it. So. Everybody has challenges in terms of marketing.
And that's a challenge, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're on, it becomes overwhelming. It's like, give me a break, I can't, I can't do all of that.
Well, and some days I get so tired of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to post because once you get like 5,000 followers who start posting, if you don't answer them or like them or talk to them, they're gone. And so you have to keep communicating, or they'll be sending me emails, and so I spend 2 hours in the morning just doing that, responding to people all the time. And sometimes I'm just so exhausted, I'm like, I really can't stand doing this anymore. but this is what we have to do. But for young people, you're used to being, I had to teach myself all this stuff, and it's still free marketing, frankly speaking. We don't pay for Facebook
Well, it still
or Instagram.
costs your time, so whatever you're paying yourself, it costs that to create it. And if you're hiring someone else, like a photographer or videographer, to actually create the videos, then there's a cost there. But actually organically posting, you don't have to pay to do that.
Exactly. So give me some lessons that you've learned. We've been talking about hiring employees, but what kinds of lessons can you share with women who are watching this that you learned in terms of business that might be pitfalls that they can, not fall into in doing their own business?
I know one thing that's happened to me a lot is people looking for free services.
Yeah.
And it's hard because, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but you want to do things for people, you want to help people. But it's like, wait a minute.
And if you don't value your time, they won't value your time.
Yeah. We have a joke about that. You'd never go to a doctor and say, like, hey, can you set my arm? I just broke it for free.
Right.
But people constantly go to artists and say, hey, we have a school project. Will you come and draw this mural or paint this or whatever? So I am right there with you. And we need to always try to value our time and what we contribute and put a dollar sign attached to it. People need to know.
And on that kind of same topic is I get people to pay for their courses up front now, because you spend all this time setting it up and talking and emailing hours, and then you go to meet, and then like they don't show up, and it's, oh, I'm sorry, I was busy, whatever. But if you get that commitment, then they show, and they
I'll say that one of the most important things is, we talked about a business plan earlier, but it is important to continually go back to that business plan and sort of revise it, tweak it, do what you need, because things change. And at the beginning of every year, I basically look back at the previous year, with both by myself as well as with my accountant, and then plan for the new year and figure out where I went wrong, what I need to change, what not. Most of the errors that pop up are because I didn't budget enough for one category or overspent in another, and
And on the same line as you had, people would call me and say, hey, can you meet me for coffee? Or they'll call me on the phone and talk for an hour and a half, and basically have a therapy session on the phone, or tell me their child's history or all of that on the phone so that they don't have to pay for a session. So, and free constantly comes up all the time, people wanting things free and finding subtle ways to figure out how to do that. Yeah.
A piece of advice on that someone once told me is, when you're engaging with someone, what you can say is like, hey, the first 10 minutes are free, and after that the clock starts.
Yep.
And that way you start the conversation, and within the 10 minutes time, they know right up front that, my services have a value, my time is worthwhile.
Well, see, what I do now is I bank the price, the hour that I spend with the person. I bank the price into that so that, you know, I can the difference in what I do working with people with autism is they need to call me when they're in trouble. And so if I had to charge for every single one of those times, and so what I do is I put into what I've done two different things. I get paid by the hour for people that I'm just meeting hourly, but I also have a monthly one so that you can text me and call me, you know, and
That's great.
because some people text and call and email constantly, and I like, okay. And so that helps me and alleviates me from having the burden of having to constantly be at them. Do you have any challenges?
Yeah, lots of challenges. It'd be like a whole nother show. But I would say one that hasn't already been mentioned is learning when to pivot and maybe like change your services that you're offering, or maybe marketing in a different way and like pivot sooner. I think is probably one of my.
But explain.
So pivoting. So for example, with my consulting business, I was very focused for a lot of the time on public health consulting because that had been the last full-time job that I had was in public health. But there's all different aspects of consulting that someone with my background can be really good at. So I was just kind of very focused on that one narrow area, and there's not a whole lot of demand for freelance consultants in that area. So it was like very low demand. I wasn't getting like hardly any work. So then learning how to kind of like take that into account and factor that in and make changes in my marketing and my sales strategy and the types of businesses that I was or organizations I was reaching out to, and do that sooner. I think I would.
Go ahead.
Sorry. But yeah, I just think that learning when to pivot and pivoting sooner.
Good point. Sometimes I miss those, you know, times to pivot. And, you know, and I will say, you know, I have failed in business. And one of the things they don't teach you in school is that failure is like a stepping stone to success. Because I learned so much more by failing at businesses than I did, or having the wrong business partner. Never have your husband as a business partner. You know, I mean, some people can do that and some people can't. And, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work in a marriage to have a spouse as a business partner. But there's so many different, you know, and I think the reason that I was asking you that is because people think if you failed in business, okay, that's it, you know, I'm just going to go and, you know, be an employee again. But oftentimes failure is a stepping stone to get to the next place, and you learn from those times that you fail.
That's true.
Have you thought about anything?
I think my challenge, I would say, with my with Monticello nannies would be, you know, because I meet with all of my clients, and so they know that they get 3 nannies to interview, and so what they would do is, you know, they would, you know, I would visit with them, and then they didn't want to pay the application fee. So, you know, I would make 2 or 3 trips, and I'm like, okay, so thank God for Cash App. And then
Cash App?
Yeah, you can, now I'll get my money instantly. It's called Cash App. Have you heard of it? It's almost like Venmo.
Cash App.
Yes.
I've heard of it, not used. I've used Venmo.
Yeah, Venmo is another one. So it goes in instantly.
No, I have Square.
Okay, I've used that.
Yeah, just swipe it. Okay, well there you go. So why, you know, one of the things that when you have a small business, and like brick and mortar these days, I mean, all I have to do is drive around and look at all the empty stores everywhere these days. And so we're all challenged in terms of, you know, starting a business or owning your own business, especially if you don't do it very well if you don't know how to do it very well online. Why should people support women-owned businesses or minority and local businesses? What benefit is that to people and to the community?
I think it's always better to invest in your community rather than giving money to a big nebulous corporation. And I mean, of course, you know, probably Walmart's going to last for a long time. But
Amazon.
Or Amazon, yeah. And there is an ease to that. But it's always better to invest in your community and people in your community.
Yeah, I always tell people, when you spend $1 here at this store, $1 stays in this community. One of the people that work here is being paid. One of the artists that made the item is being paid. I mean, we try to reinvest in our community. And when you invest in your community and infrastructure, it's investing in a better quality of life for the people that live there. We do have a lot of touristy business, but I do think people are starting to realize the value and the benefit of shopping local. There's been a lot of marketing, and American Express, someone mentioned that earlier with their Small Business Saturday. I think people really do understand. I run basically a fourth quarter business in the gift world. And we have specific customers that will come and do almost all of their holiday shopping exclusively from the store, because they want to contribute to their neighbors and friends that are making the products and reselling them. I mean, that's just huge.
And you
It's
can't
huge.
get what you do on Amazon.
No, I mean, Amazon is trying to say that they build community, and they're doing an awful lot trying to say that they're the friend of the small business person, but don't believe it.
One of the things when I speak before congressional hearings and things, one of the things that I talk about is how, nowadays you cannot do business unless you do it with these conglomerates. I mean, you can't sell a book if you don't put it on Amazon. Products, the same thing. It's almost impossible these days if you're not part of these big, conglomerates who have taken over. People don't want to go out and drive around and go to this store and that store and, different places to be able to buy things. And I think it's building a kind of a mentality with people.
It is. My stepdaughter has a 3.5-year-old, and her diapers are delivered to her house.
Yep.
Their groceries are delivered. I mean, it's just the way that it was. I mean, when I was having kids 20 some odd years ago, I never in a million years would have even thought that I could have had diapers delivered to my house.
Right.
I was still contemplating, should I use cotton or disposable? That was my issue, not about having something delivered. So the mindset of the generation now is extremely different, and that plays into all of our businesses. And one of the challenges that I've had to do is really understanding the millennial mindset, because I had a lot of misconceptions about it just for my own nieces and nephews and borderline children. And I recently read the most fabulous book that I would recommend for anybody in a business setting, whether you're hiring or working with people. But it's actually, I wrote it down here to get it right. It's called The Millennial Myth by Crystal Kadakia. And she's an engineer, she's a millennial, and it is fantastic. I've already given this book away to several people. Please read it. It will help you understand how you can relate to different intergenerational groups. And it's a real issue because we think differently and we operate differently.
And that's exactly why it's important to determine who your target market is, because each one, whatever age span you're working with has a different way of thinking and being. And, like my age group doesn't necessarily go online to do business.
Right.
They want to touch things and, like I would never buy a book, online.
Right.
I want it. Touch the pages and read it and all that kind of thing.
Smell that paper.
Smell the paper, exactly. So you just segued into what I was going to ask about what resources or books would any of you have to recommend for other people who are doing business? Anybody?
I have another one, because
Okay.
this is my career. Books are everything to me. I read several hours a day. The other book that I read 30 years ago that is still imprinted, it actually came out in like 1987, I believe, ironically, is called The E-Myth.
Oh, yes.
And it's been revised. There's workbooks. And basically with The E-Myth, it is fantastic. So the author is Michael Gerber.
Right.
And it explains basically why most businesses don't work. Yeah. So the concept is, are you an entrepreneur, a manager, or a technician, or some combination of all three of those? And reading that was like the aha light bulb went off in my mind. Wow, am I the widget maker or am I the manager, the dreamer? Am I the entrepreneur?
Yep.
Which one are you? And if you're opening your own business or working for someone else, in fact, I mean, just read this book. It's
and
fantastic.
oftentimes the person who's got the creativity is not the person who knows how to do the budgeting
Correct.
and managing and all that kind of thing. They want to do all
Right.
the creative kind of stuff, but have 2 feet planted in the air and don't know how to, do the concrete stuff like managing their money and things like that. Anybody else have any resources or books they'd like to share with people?
Not necessarily a book, but I do think that the resources, the small business resources in Charlottesville are exceptional. They run different classes and seminars, and the people, I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but the people with whom I've been in contact would love to help and are helpful. You can have free meetings with people about developing business plans and how to go about doing that.
Are you talking about the
SCORE?
retired, the SCORE?
SCORE.
Retired
It might be
business
part of
owners?
SCORE.
Or
Yeah.
the SBDC. They're connected.
Yes. That's
And then the CIC.
acronym.
CIC.
So recently, the Central Virginia SBDC is now part of CIC.
Yeah.
Right. So SCORE is the retired
The Chamber of
people.
Commerce.
The Chamber,
Basic Chamber of
Yeah.
Commerce. And
Well, I would recommend probably the Better Business Bureau because that's really helpful, especially when they see that.
You're a member.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So becoming a member of the Better
Yes,
Business Business.
and the
Yeah.
chamber, I would recommend.
Well, the Charlottesville area chambers of commerce, I think they have 7 counties linked in.
Yes,
so if
that's
you pay
true.
one membership fee, you have access to
Green, Louisa, Fluvanna, Orange.
It's the best bargain
Never know.
going.
Yes.
I
That's
mean,
right.
it's really affordable.
Yep.
You get online and in print, and just wonderful resources.
And I take advantage of that. I go to all the different
Yes,
meetings,
yes.
and they all have women's groups as well.
Yep.
So depending on what kind of business that you're doing, if you're business to business or women to women or whatever it is, there's all kinds of resources in the community to expand on that. But then again, if you're a solopreneur, you've got to
to do
use your
everything.
time. How do you use
Doing
your time to
everything.
be able to do all those things? And so, one of the things that is important is to have a support team,
Oh gosh, yes.
whether it's at home or friends or family or whatever it is that you're not paying. It's really important to have people who support you,
Yeah.
in whatever it is that you do. Do you have a family supporting you as well, right?
Yes. And also the, the Business Women Roundtable?
The business.
Through the chamber is very helpful.
Yep.
I
That's
always
like
say
a support.
your number one business support person should be someone who loves you but will tell you the truth.
Yes.
That's right.
Because you
Absolutely right.
sometimes need to be talked down off the ledge. Someone needs to say, that's a bad idea. Don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it. And otherwise you have friends just going, oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Then you,
Exactly.
you don't need that.
But then there are personalities who don't appreciate, people telling you that, hey, maybe you better not go this direction or things like that. So you have to kind of walk on the ledge with that.
Sure.
Do you have a
Yeah,
support?
and then just finding mentors either
Yes,
in your
yes,
industry
yes,
and
yes.
finding maybe
Good
a mix
point,
of in your
Jillian.
industry as well as ones from other industries because they bring in different insights. Just someone who's been in business longer than you or has done better than you in business, you can learn a lot from them.
I had my business plan written by UVA students for years.
See,
They did
that's-
my budgeting, they did my business plan, and I got, people over there who were going into banking, the industry and things like that. They were the ones who, and they also helped support a lot of different things that were going on, in the community. They wanted to know where they could do volunteer services and things like that. So if you've got a nonprofit, for example, the sororities and fraternities in town are looking for projects all the time to do. So that's another, we are lucky
Where
here
do you
with
go at UVA to find those people?
Well, I would suggest sororities and fraternities first, and then
The business school?
the Madison House, the business school.
There's 2 business schools. There's
Yeah,
an undergraduate
Darden.
that also has some graduate
Right.
ones, McIntyre School
Right.
of Business, as well as Darden.
Yep.
Darden has, I think, an official consulting
Yes.
arm of it.
Yes.
McIntyre, I'm sure they do consulting, but it's more like a volunteer organization, I believe.
Well, I will tell you that the engineering department at UVA developed an app for me last year for my autistic people to communicate with each other. So, you know, it takes a little, it's free, but it takes a little bit of time to meet with them and, you know, guide them in terms of the things that you want. But we have a lot of services in this and the thing that I learned from the beginning was I did not realize we had all these things available to us in the community until other people started telling me about it.
There's also the incubator program through
Yes.
UVA,
Yes.
which you can find online
iLab.
and find out more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, iLab.
Yeah. Now, I used to be involved in a Charlottesville networking group. There are many very good networking groups here. So,
Okay.
that's
There's a
something
meetup group. They meet
Yep.
at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
at
there's
Cedar
tons and
Coffee
tons and
stuff.
tons of meetup groups. So if we've got our last few seconds here, and if you'd like to go around and if you have any other comments to make about anything to let our audience know, you've got 10 seconds.
Okay, I would like to say that to the audience that if there's something that you're dreaming about or wanting to do, you need to make it happen.
Yep. Okay, Janine?
I would encourage everybody to really spend a lot of quality time with themselves in a sequestered area, coming up with a business plan, having someone, a professional, look at it, and getting a lot of advice before you actually don't dive in the deep end,
Right.
toe in the shallow end,
Right.
and baby steps.
Okay, Kim? Kimberly?
Well, I want to start out by thanking you, Daria.
That's right, thank you.
Because
for
you do
having
so
us.
much for everyone. It's incredible.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, you know, it just, as your mom always says in Nike, just do it, you know. And, you know, take it one step at a time. You know, be focused on what you want. And
Jillian?
Yeah, I would agree with all of that, and then also thank you, Daria. And then just encouraging other women or people who identify as female just to not be discouraged and think of it as a man's world, because as we see the trends, more women and people who identify as female are opening up their own businesses. So
Well, this has been an exciting time talking about, and I hope we've inspired you to open up your own business or do whatever it is that you need to do for yourself in terms of earning an income. You've been watching What Wise Women Want here on CPA channel, Comcast channel 13, and today's show is about women-owned businesses. I'm Dr. Daria Brzezinski, and we hope you'll join us again next week. We have some exciting programs coming up. You can look at us at www.whatwisewomenwant.com, and remember that wise is spelled with a Z. Thank you so much.